kudos and thank yous to Mr. Mills for very, very, very good job in getting this Honeywell situation up to the point it's gotten to. I assume that the people who were the persons who filed the suit have 45 days to appeal, sir.
That's correct.
But I would say that irrespective of the fact that last time around you told me how well you did, this time I give you all the credit for doing everything that you should have done. So my best wishes off with you. Our union negotiations are proceeding. We hope that before we get too far into the year that we will have an adjudication and a realization of what our costs are going to be. As you know, the Morristown Beard hockey team did not show up tonight. They had a few teachers out and I think they have spring break, so we're going to have them in for next month. Looking forward to that. Once again, I'm sorry to have missed Mr. O'Hagan's week this evening, but just all our best wishes and thoughts to him and to the family for what's gone on. I welcome Mr. Rosenbush, who, even while he was away, did Herculean work for the township, was constantly on the phone with us, was constantly in touch with us, did all of his budget work before he left, and I was very, very, very pleased and happy to have him back. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay. One thing I'd like to mention, I see that there are several towns that are starting to do a zero tolerance for distracted driving, meaning texting and driving at the same time. And I would hope that statutes notwithstanding by the state, that everybody takes to heart that, you know what, tell your kid to either leave his phone home or buy one of those apps that would shut it off when the car's going more than 5 miles an hour. Because it's a horrible thing to think of a child talking while driving and having something of that sort happen to himself. What else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Guzzo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My condolences as well to the O'Hagan family. The colonel, as you heard earlier, had a lot of accomplishments, including a term as a freeholder and mayor of Morris Township. And I wanted to thank him and his family for all of years of service to the municipality. Thanks to all of you who worked on the budget. I know that those on the budget committee, Mr. Caffrey, Mr. Mancuso, Mr. Quinn, spent a lot of hours working on it, nights, weekends, and thank you for all the time you put in. Regarding the budget, we brought up a couple times about the $148,000 in savings from the joint court. 2 weeks ago, there was a quarterly meeting, as Mr. Quinn had mentioned, that Mr. Caffrey and I attended along with Mr. Quinn. And we heard from the court administrator that things are running well. The caseload has been absorbed very smoothly, and everybody down there is happy. And I happened to bump into Mayor Platt today, the mayor of Harding, who is the chair of the Joint Court Committee this year. And Mayor Platt was just at a league meeting. I forget where the league meeting was, but he said that Senator Sweeney, the president of the New Jersey Senate, took it up as one of the best examples of a shared service in the state of New Jersey. So it got an honorable mention at this league meeting recently. So I think things are going well there. Mr. Quinn also mentioned how well the sewer utility is doing, which will only get better when the new Randolph line gets put in. And I wanted to let the public know that the sewer committee has a sewer committee which consists of myself and Mr. Rosenbush has had discussions about creating a senior citizen rate for their sewer bill, so they have a lower rate than what other people pay, because as seniors they use less of the capacity than the rest of us might. And so the sewer committee is going to be taking that up for further discussions. Hopefully we can lower the rate for our seniors, and it'll help make Morris Township more affordable for those people who are on fixed income, and let them allow them to live here longer, we hope. Third, regarding the library, over the last 4 years, many municipalities have learned to live within their means. And we all have to live within our means. And when things break in the municipality, we have to pay for it and we have to put it in the budget. And I'm not implying that the library is not living within their means, because their budget actually this year is lower than last year. But I think going forward, given the things that have happened at the library, and there was, I believe, a line item this year for a boiler replacement in their budget as well. It's an old building that needs to breaking down, and I would like to see the library start putting aside more of their annual budget money towards a reserve fund to put aside some money for future things that might go wrong, so we don't get hit with these big bills like we have this year or next year. So if you could take that back to the library, I'd appreciate that, Mr. Brooks.
Certainly will, and we can talk about it.
Very good.
We do have a budget committee that covers that.
Good. Earlier today, I attended the first meeting of a new group sponsored by the Great Swamp Watershed Association, but they are calling the Municipal Alliance, and that's actually where I bumped into Mayor Platt. The presentation was on repurposing facilities, older facilities, including aging downtowns and outdated office space. And there were some learnings that I think we can apply to the Honeywell property here in Morris Township. And I look forward to sharing some of that information with the members of this committee who are on the planning board. They can take it back to the planning board who are going to be reviewing the Honeywell plans. I'd like to congratulate Morris Township's latest Eagle Scouts, which are David Coven and Jeremy Herbert, who received Scouting's highest honors and were honored at a ceremony at Freely High School on March 27th. We had one of them here tonight, but I think we scared him away with all our lengthy discussions. But glad he was here. Lastly, for our residents who are taking part in the holidays of Passover and Easter, I wish them a joyous and meaningful holiday. Please note that the municipal building is closed this Friday for Good Friday. And for those of you with kids, there's 2 Easter egg hunts coming up this weekend. 10:30 at Fairchild on Saturday. There's an Easter hunt that's going to actually be taking place at the Alfred Dale School. And the Hillside Hose is sponsoring an Easter egg hunt at Saunders Field off of Rolling Hill Drive at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Thank you.
Mr. Rosenbusch.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I have a number of comments to make. And I too want to thank all that were involved in preparing the budget. It was a very, very good job. As we said, or as was said at our work session, we were very, very fortunate coming off of 2013. And I hope Mr. Barsamian and others in the audience, and I'm actually thrilled to have a group of people here for our budget presentation, because it gives you a sense of the detail that we go into as we dig into every single thing that the town needs on an annual basis. But I hope some of the questions that you raised and some of the ideas that you proposed in your letter have a greater meaning for you and make a little more sense. And by the way, I understand, and you said it nicely, you said as an outsider it looks like this. I hope getting an insider's view, not that we hide it from anybody, we're happy to talk about it because we think we have a lot of good things to say, but now that you've gotten a broader view, a deeper view of what goes into it, I'll just touch on a couple of things in your letter and in explanation, because I don't think anybody looked at some of your specific suggestions. For example, you mentioned that construction official services went up substantially from 13 to 14. And you're absolutely right. But as you also heard, we had a record number of construction permits in 13. And it generated over $1 million in revenue, more than offsetting by over 50% our cost of providing that service. So I think those costs are probably in line with providing the service. You talk about some of the capital improvements, and as you saw from the presentation, we're making an awful lot of them this year. And because we came off a good year in 13, what we decided to do actually is pay for some of those in cash, rather than borrowing money. They're projects that need to be done. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And this year we are in a good enough position to borrow a similar amount to what we paid off, the strategy that Mr. Quinn mentioned, but also to be able to take on a couple of additional capital projects, literally in cash, what we call paying it out of the capital fund. And then you mentioned a couple of items out of the sewer department, which, while we didn't go into all of the line items of the sewer department, as you now realize, it's a completely separate utility from the municipal budget, and is in very good shape financially. And I wasn't going to let the cat out of the bag about our consideration of a senior rate. It's something that I brought up some time ago, and we may well be in a position to implement, but we haven't gotten that far yet. But I'm glad to admit that we're talking about it, which is a good thing. Unfortunately, and what I've learned over the many, many years, and I'm sure Jeff could confirm this, and that is when it comes to sewer plants, there is nothing inexpensive. I'm sorry to say. So I think all of those expenditures in order to keep those plants running and operating efficiently is a good investment. I do have one or two other comments, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Scott.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Just that we needed a little bit an earlier input into the whole process, rather than be faced with a fait accompli. But thank you for elucidating some of these points.
No problem. Again, I think we have a lot to be proud of. We have a philosophy of budgeting very conservatively. And it has paid off handsomely for us over the years. One thing I learned a long, long time ago is you can get a flat budget. You've seen the numbers, they're big enough, $27, $28 a year. We could make that zero, okay? But it's very, very difficult if you go for a zero and a zero and a zero and a zero, and then all of a sudden you have to pay the piper. So while it's difficult, I'm not disputing this, while it's difficult to pay a little more each year, I think it's better to pay a little more each year than to pay it all at once. And we've had that situation or a similar one to that in the past. And again, I think we've done a very, very good job of crafting a very, very good and conservative budget. We're anticipating some major expenses going forward, and we have the money, and we're setting much money aside for some of those major expenses. But thank you for coming. It's my pleasure. There were a couple of comments by people thanking me back to the dais, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's funny, but I don't recall anybody ever welcoming Mr. Grayzel back when he was gone last year. It's not that big a deal, folks. I do my work for the township whether I'm here or out of town. In fact, I pay closer attention to some of the things that we're doing than some people do. You're right, Mr. Goldberg, our audio system is not perfect. Perhaps if you had included my recording in your posting of the videos online, people would have heard what I said using your audio system. I hope you don't edit me again. I've made my comments about the O'Hagan family. It's a loss to Morris Township. It's a loss to our community. I can only hope for myself and each of us that we can all be as good to our families and to our community as Peter O'Hagan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Caffrey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, my condolences to the O'Hagan family and Peter O'Hagan. Had the pleasure of knowing him for the past probably 10 years. I wish I would have known him longer. He was very insightful, and I learned a lot from him. I remember spending a time in his living room with his wife and telling me many, many stories about the township and when he served as mayor and on the committee, and they were terrific. Again, the budget, not to belabor that, I want to thank everybody on this dais within the town, especially Mr. Quinn, who put in countless hours. And there was a lot of juggling between the tax appeals and the library work. We did a lot of juggling to make sure that we kept those numbers very low. And there were a lot of low-hanging fruit, as Mr. Bartolomeo had said, that the low-hanging fruit was cut pretty much immediately. There was nothing left low-hanging after that. A couple other things. Yard waste collections have started in Morris Township. Morristown National held its opening day last Saturday. Great day. Mayor Doherty, Mayor Sisler threw out the first pitch. Mayor Sisler did make home plate. So, and I think the Jugs gun clocked him at about, I don't know, 18, 19 miles an hour. Something like that. But it was a great day, and you know what? Baseball has started. Lastly, I want to, I just want to piggyback on what my colleague to my left, Mr. Rosenbusch, had said. A lot has been made of him attending some of the meetings from out of town. Some of it jokingly, like I don't have to talk so loud up here at the microphone. That's a great pleasure for me. Some of it not so jokingly, actually some pretty preposterous statements made publicly, calling for Mr. Sisler, looking for his resignation. Incredibly preposterous. Especially when you consider, by the way, myself and every member to my left have zero problem with any member being on the phone for a meeting, whether it be Mr. Rosenbusch, Mr. Mancuso, Mayor Sisler, myself, or Mr. Grayzel. But Mr. Grayzel last year missed 4 out of 13 meetings. 4. 31%. So for those keeping score, which some are, I find it incredibly hypocritical for not mentioning why has not been the same called for Mr. Grayzel. Because you know what? It really isn't about, I have to talk louder at the microphone. It's really not about that. I think we can all figure out what it's really about. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. When I went to the wake this afternoon, I think everyone at that wake, including Colonel O'Hagan's children, said the same thing. Colonel Peter O'Hagan was a busy, busy man. Peter, I know you were very close with him, and I wanted to try and get this meeting done so that we could get back to see him and his family one more time. But you know what? Colonel O'Hagan would be very proud of you that you didn't skip this meeting, that you stayed here to continue to be the busy man that he was. He was a dedicated public servant. He was a guy that I met when I was a little kid running around down at the Morris Minutemen, and my dad was working with him as a Minuteman. Dedicated to public service doesn't seem appropriate because we're dedicated to public service, but what he did and accomplished in his life was truly remarkable. One of the police officers outside of Doyle's funeral home and I were talking, and he said there's like 4 columns of the obituary for Peter O'Hagan. And we said, yeah, there probably could have been more, but it probably would have been easier if we just put like what he didn't do. Probably would have been a half a column. So please pray for him and his family. Pray for Morris Township. We've truly lost somebody that was a special individual to this town. I met with JCP&L recently to talk about 2 issues. One, dealing with the smart grid project that they are developing. I will discuss that more next month in my comments. I also met with them to discuss their tree trimming and vegetation dealings